So we're gonna, hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. I've been thinking a lot about you. We're gonna start our next unit, and so I'm just gonna be posting stuff hopefully on Monday for you to do the rest of the week. You can always email me. I will answer my emails every single day. You can get a hold of me that way. So with any questions, and hopefully we're just gonna make this as easy and pain-free as possible. That's like my whole goal for you guys. I don't want this to be overwhelming, or anything like that. You will notice I am recording from a closet. Why? Because, well, that's what I had to record today. So there's a lot of other people in my house who are working on work, and this is where I'm recording from. So we're going to do, I'm going to try to keep it like regular class, but of course we won't have as many fun activities because, well, it's hard to get all of you guys supplies. So we're going to do a little bit of notes, and then we're going to do a worksheet. So I'll talk about that worksheet, but if you don't have like a printer, no big deal. Just look at the worksheet and you can just write the answers on a separate sheet of paper. I'll help you guys go through it so you can check your answers and we can kind of go along. It'll be kind of like I'm in class with you, even though I'm not. Okay. So you will need a sheet of paper, probably your notebook if you have it, right? Hopefully you should have it. And I'll tell you what you need to write down for notes. Okay. To move on to our next unit, which is genetics. So I don't need you to write this down. You can just write down the title, but genetics is studying how traits are passed down from parents to offspring. So we just looked at mitosis, remember cell division that is used for us to grow and divide, and then meiosis, which is used for reproduction. And we saw that in meiosis, we go from one cell and we make 4 cells. That's how we make sperm and egg for reproduction. Okay, now we're going to tie in DNA and we're going to look at how this DNA and these genes are passed down from your parents to you. So we've already talked a lot about this, but we're going to get into like the nitty gritty, like how does all of this work? Okay. So here's our learning target. We're going to learn some new words: genotype, phenotype, traits, and alleles. Some of you might have learned about genetics in 7th grade. Some of you may not. So we're just going to go through everything kind of basic, and some of you it might be a little bit of review. Some of you it might be new. So first thing we're going to talk about is a gene. We've gone over this. We wrote this down in our DNA unit. So if you don't want to write it down again, you don't have to. Okay, but if you still don't know what a gene is, you need to write it down. Remember, we said a gene is a section of DNA, okay, and it codes for a protein. So on our chromosomes right here, they're made of long strands of DNA. Each part or section is called a gene. And a gene is responsible for making traits. In some of the classes, I've asked you, like, oh, what are some of SpongeBob's traits? So you guys all know SpongeBob. Some of you said, oh, he's got big teeth. He's yellow. He's got holes. You know, these are all some of his traits. Okay, so traits are like characteristics, things you can see. Down here, we have a picture of some of these traits. So like hair color, eye color, whether or not you have dimples, skin color, size and shape of your lips. You know how sometimes when you look at somebody, like you meet their relatives, so maybe you go over to your friend's house and then you meet their mom and you're like, whoa, you look similar. Or you meet their sister or their brother and you're like, whoa, you guys look similar. The things that make them look similar are called traits. It's just our physical appearance, okay? And these are passed down from our parents. It's the reason that kids or people who are related to each other look similar. So a trait is just a characteristic. So again, we're just talking about these basic words. You've probably heard them before, but we're just going to kind of review them because we're going to talk a lot about them when we get to genetics, which is this unit. So again, if you need more time at any point, just pause the video, okay? You don't have to write this down, but just a reminder, genes are on chromosomes. So here we see a chromosome, here we see a chromosome, right? These yellow things. And they've got different genes on them. They've got thousands of different genes on every chromosome. And remember, we have 2 sets of chromosomes, 1 set from mom. So here we see like, oh, the pink ones are from mom, 1 set from dad. Do you guys remember how many chromosomes we have in our body cells? We have 46. So that means 23 came from mom, 23 came from dad. Okay, and that's going to be important because mom and dad's genes, they're going to kind of play a tug-of-war match to see who's going to win and who's going to produce the trait or the characteristic in you. I'm going to skip over this slide, but this old guy, he was in the late 1800s. His name was Gregor Mendel, and he's the one who kind of figured out all of this stuff, okay? Now, we have another new word. So again, we're going to talk about a lot of new words in this unit up front. So allele, different gene possibility for the same trait. Okay, so allele is kind of another word for gene. Okay. So blue eyes or brown eyes. We say, oh, you have the blue eye allele or the blue eye gene. Okay, it's kind of just another way of saying gene. Oh, you have the brown eye gene. It's like saying you have the brown eye allele. Okay, so these are two different alleles for eye color. We've got the blue eye allele and the brown eye allele. So you can just think of this as the same as gene. Okay, so if you hear me say allele, just think the word gene. I'm just saying allele so that you guys know, because we're going to say allele a lot in this unit. It's pretty much the same thing as a gene. So here's the deal. When we have two genes, right? One is mom's gene, one is dad's gene that they give to you, okay? So if this is mom, this is dad, they're each going to give you half of their genes, right? You get 23 from mom, you get 23 from dad. If mom has brown eyes and dad has blue eyes, what color eyes are you going to get? That's what we're talking about now. Let's take a look at this picture over here. So this picture, if we look at the two people, this guy, okay, has the power over this guy, right? So the big guy has the power over the little guy. That's kind of what happens with your genes. Some of them have more power than others, okay? We say the ones that have more power are dominant, and we use a capital letter to symbolize them, okay? They're the ones that are going to win, like in a fight, okay? Now, our genes don't actually fight, but they're the ones that are going to win out over the other ones. So we say a dominant allele. Remember the word allele? It's just a gene, a dominant gene. And it overpowers another gene or overpowers another allele. We use a capital letter to symbolize this. So go ahead and take a second to write this down. If you need to pause the video, go ahead. So in this case, this big guy, he's the dominant one, right? He's the bigger dominant one. He's going to overpower, take over the little one. And we have recessive. This is an allele or a gene that only shows up when there isn't a dominant allele. Okay, so if there's nobody to overpower him, then he gets to win, but only if there's not a capital letter there. I'll show you an example of this in a second. So remember, mom gave you a gene, half of their genes, and dad gave you half. So in our example up here, if mom gave you a capital and dad gave you a capital, well, you would have a capital letter, right? Both of them win. They're the same because they're both capital letters. If mom gave you a capital and dad gave you a lowercase, which one would win? The capital letter, right? But if you get both two lowercase letters, well, they're the same, so you'd end up with the lowercase gene. It's okay if you're a little confused right now. We're going to explain it all on the next slide. Let me give you an example. Brown eyes are dominant to blue eyes. So dominant means they're going to win. Blue eyes are recessive. So the first thing we do is we assign letters to genes. These are letters that we make up. Just like in math class, you use X to symbolize something, we make up letters to symbolize dominant and recessive genes. So here they already gave it to us. Since brown eyes are dominant, they get a capital letter. So capital B equals brown, lowercase b equals blue. So if I have two capital letters, what color eyes am I going to have? They're both capital, they're both the same, so they have to be brown, right? If they're both the same, they're just whatever that letter represents. If I have little b, two little b's, what's it going to be? it would be blue. Now, what if I have one capital and one lowercase? Which one's going to win? Remember, it said brown eyes, capital B is dominant. So the capital letter is always dominant. The capital always wins. So if the capital letter always wins, these are going to be brown eyes. Okay? So this is how that works. Let's do the next one. Brown hair is dominant to blonde hair. So brown hair is dominant. They did a capital A. Blonde hair is recessive. Okay, so they did a lowercase. So if I've got two uppercase letters, what color is it going to be? Two letter A's, they're the same, so brown. If I got two lowercase, what's it going to be? It's going to be blonde. And if I have a capital and a lowercase, which one wins? The uppercase dominant one wins, so it's going to be brown. So that's how we do these, okay? Remember, why do we always write two of them? Well, one gene's from mom, one is from dad, okay? We always have two copies of every gene. Last thing we're going to look at is some words, okay? So again, we're looking at a lot of these vocab words, okay, just in the beginning here. So we said one gene from mom, one from dad. We always have two. So if we have two of the same letters, we call that homozygous. So when we learn new words, one of the things I like to do is ask us, do we know of any other words that begin with the same letters? So we see homozygous begins with H-O-M-O, and I know we've talked about this before. We've talked about the word homeostasis, which has a similar beginning. Instead of H-O-M-O, it begins with H-O-M-E-O. And if you remember, homeostasis means same state. We talked about this when we talked about the body and how it maintains the same temperature, the same water levels, the same nutrient levels, all of that stuff. So if homeostasis means same state, we can guess that same is referring to the H-O-M-E-O part of that word. And then up here, since they're so similar, the H-O-M-O part up here means same. So what we're really saying when we have homozygous is that we have two of the same letters, either two capitals or two lowercase. This is different from heterozygous. So heterozygous means we have two different letters, a capital and a lowercase letter. So one dominant and one recessive allele or gene. You should have a worksheet. I'll scroll up here. This is what your worksheet looks like. I put it on a flip chart. I put it on here so that we can go through it together. Gotta go back to the front here. So let's read the top together. It says, recall that each organism inherits one allele for a gene from each parent. The combination of genes an organism has is its genotype, okay? If an organism inherits two of the same gene, it's homozygous, okay? So it's got two of the same. If it inherits two different ones, it's heterozygous, okay? According to Mendel, he's the guy that we skipped over, one of these will be dominant and will be expressed if it's present, okay? It can mask or overpower the recessive trait. An organism can only express a recessive trait if it has two recessive traits. When recording the genes or the genotype, two letters are used, a capital letter for dominant and lowercase for recessive. By knowing the genotype of an organism, you can identify its phenotype or how it looks. We haven't learned about phenotype and genotype, don't worry about those, but you know that the genes represent or will determine how an organism looks and its physical appearance and its traits. So it says use the information to identify the genotype, the genes, and the appearance in each example, okay? So here's our first one. We need to indicate whether it's heterozygous or homozygous. So do you guys remember which one of these means two of the same? So homozygous means two of the same. Heterozygous means two different, okay? So big A, are they the same or different? They're the same, so this would be homozygous. So I'm going to write HO. Big B, little b, are they two of the same or two different? They're two different, so heterozygous. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to pause this video. I want you to fill in the rest of them on your own, okay? And then come back and check your answers with me, okay? So pause the video right now. Big C, little c, this is going to be heterozygous. They're two different. Capital D, they're both two capital letters, so that's going to be homozygous. Big E, little e, two different. This is heterozygous. Little f, they're the same, homozygous. Big G, little g, those are different, a capital and a lowercase. Big H, those are the same, homozygous. Big I, two different, heterozygous. Capital J, lowercase, those are different. Little k, those are two of the same. Little l, or big L, those are two of the same. Big M, little m, two different. Little n, two of the same. Little o, two of the same. And big P, little p, those are two different. Okay. All right. So now that we've done that, we're going to move on to the next part. So it says for each of the genotypes, determine what the phenotypes would be possible. So phenotype means the physical appearance. So what are the physical appearances that we could have? Okay, so it says purple flowers are dominant to white flowers. So the capital letter, P, is going to be what color? So if purple's dominant, that means big P is purple, little p is white, right? So if I have two big P's, what color is it going to be? It's going to be purple, okay? What about if I have a big P and a little p? Which letter is going to win? Which color is going to win? If I have a big P and a little p, right, the big P is going to win. So they're going to be purple as well. What if I have two little p's? Which one's going to win? Well, there's all the same, so it's little p, so it's going to be white. Again, I want you to pause the video and I want you to go ahead and do the rest of them and then come back and check your answers with me. Okay? All right, letter B. Round seeds are dominant to wrinkled. So round is going to be a big R because it's dominant. Wrinkled is going to be a little r. Okay, so big R is going to be round because they're both big R's. Big R, little r is going to be round because the big R wins. And little r is going to be wrinkled. Sorry, my handwriting's terrible. I'm writing with my finger on a laptop, which is not very easy. All right, next one, brown eyes are dominant to blue. So big B is going to be for brown. Little b is going to be for blue. Big B is going to be what? Brown. Big B, little b is going to be brown because the big B is going to win. And then little b is going to be blue. All right. And then bobtails in cats are recessive. Wow. Apparently this does not have the other information you need here. This is supposed to say two long tails. So long tails are going to be capital T. Bobtails are going to be lowercase. Okay. So if I've got two capital T's, they're going to be long tails. Big T, little t, also going to be long. And little t, that's going to be a bobtail. Beautiful. All right, so now we're going to go reverse. For each of these physical appearances, for each of these traits, list the genes. So it says straight hair is dominant to curly. So we know that straight hair, if it's dominant, it's going to be a capital letter. Curly is going to be lowercase. Now, just so you guys know, you guys can use whichever letter you would like. You can use A, B, C, D. People just usually like to use whatever letter is representing the dominant trait. So since straight hair starts with an S, usually we use an S. So straight hair, what letters could make straight hair? We know that a capital S and a capital S could make straight hair. What else could make straight hair? Capital S and a lowercase s. And then curly hair, lowercase and lowercase. Sorry that it's so terrible for you to have to read my handwriting. Pointed heads are dominant to round heads. Okay, so we know capital P is going to be for pointed, round is going to be a little p. So what are my letters for pointed? Big P, big P. What else could I get? A big P and a little p. And then what about round? Little p, little p. All right, so here's the final test. Okay, we've got all these different symbols. And they'll tell you, so seed shape, all these different traits. So here's some traits. Seed shape, round is the dominant one, wrinkled is recessive. Okay, seed color, yellow and green, and they tell you what letters represent each one. Okay, so let's put this all together. Heterozygous, does that mean two different or two the same? Heterozygous means two different, okay? So we need two different letters for height. So let's find height on here. Stem height. Could be tall or short. We need two different letters. So the one letter is going to be a capital T. One's going to be a lower t. See how that works? Let's do number 2. Homozygous. Does that mean two of the same or two different? Homozygous, two of the same. So homozygous, two of the same. They have to be dominant. So we want two of the same dominant letters. So they're going to be the capital ones for seed shape. So let's go up to the top. Here's our seed shape. We need the two capital letters. So it's going to be R, R. All right. Let's do the next one. Heterozygous colored seed coat. So heterozygous, does that mean two of the same or two different? So heterozygous means two different. So we're going to go ahead and go up to seed coat. Okay, we need two different letters. So it's got to be a capital and a lowercase. So this should be big C and a little c. Homozygous green pod. Homozygous, two of the same or two different? Two of the same, right? And it tells you it's homozygous and it tells you green. So if it's two of the same letters and it has to be green, what's it going to be? Big G, big G. Good. All right, homozygous short. Okay, so homozygous, two of the same or two different? Should be two of the same, and they're going to be short. Okay, so short would be, where do we see short on here on our chart? Where do we see it? Yep, we see it right here, short. So if it's homozygous short, homozygous means two of the same, so it's going to be little t, little t. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and erase some of these marks, and we'll keep going. Next one, homozygous tall. So we just did homozygous short. So homozygous tall means two of the same, and it has to be tall. So tall is big T, so it's got to be two big T's. And that's terrible because it looks like two little T's, but all right, homozygous axial. Where do we see the word axial? You find it? Here's axial. Homozygous, two of the same or two different? Two of the same. So we're going to have big A there. Homozygous terminal, that's supposed to say terminal. Okay, where do we see terminal? Oh, we see it over here. Homozygous is going to be little a, little a. Heterozygous flower position. All right, let's find flower position here. You find it yet? So flower position is right here. So heterozygous, two of the same or two different? Two different, okay? So heterozygous, so we're going to have one capital and one lowercase. So big A and little a. All right, heterozygous for seed color. Heterozygous means two different. So our seed color is going to be two different letters. So we got to have a big Y and a little y. Homozygous smooth. See if we can find smooth on here. Find smooth? Here's smooth. Homozygous, two of the same, big S and a big S. Homozygous constricted pod. So these are all P's, in case you haven't realized that yet. It says up at the top. So homozygous constricted pod. So constricted, homozygous, two of the same. So we're going to have little s, little s. Homozygous recessive for seed coat color. All right, so let's go up to seed coat color. So seed coat color is up here. It's going to be, sorry, I'm a little delayed here. Seed coat color. Homozygous recessive. So homozygous, two the same or two different? Two the same. And it says it has to be recessive. So recessive is a lowercase, so it's going to be two little c's. All right, heterozygous for pod color. So let's take a look at that one. Pod color is right here. Heterozygous, two the same or two different? Two different. So it's going to be big G and little g. And then homozygous round seed. Homozygous, two the same or two different? Two the same. So round, we're going to have two of the same, so two capital R's. So that's how we do this worksheet. We're looking at these different words: heterozygous, homozygous, dominant, recessive. Okay, those are kind of the big words that we've been looking at. You don't have to turn in this worksheet to me, but if you would like to, you can take a picture and send it to me, and I'll send you a message back and ask you how you're doing if you would like. Otherwise, good job today, and I will talk to you soon.